Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Herald Sports Euro 2024 podcast coverage. I am Joshua Barrie in Cologne now, having moved on from Munich, joined by Matthew Lindsay, who remains with the Scotland team in Garmisch. Am I saying that right, Matty? Garmisch? I was about to say Garmont, and I was thinking Garmisch.
Partenkirchen.
There we are. I'll take it from you because I was second guessing myself there. We're going to talk a little bit, not too much looking back on Friday night. I'm sure everyone has had enough of Scotland against Germany and never wants to talk about that game again. But we're going to look forward to what Steve Clarke had to say in today's press conference. And of course, it continued to build up to the Switzerland game in midweek. A little bit of a look back at Switzerland-Hungary yesterday as well. So Matty, we'll come to you straight away. You obviously back down with the team. You were speaking to Steve Clarke today. I guess first and foremost, what have you made of the last couple of days? You were with the Scotland camp right in the whole build-up to that first game, which was obviously, as we've covered and everyone else in the whole of Scotland has covered, was a bit demoralising to say the least. How do you observe how the mood's been back in the camp in the last couple of days, and then we'll also touch on what Steve Clarke had to say at today's press conference.
Yeah, well, I came back to Garmisch yesterday morning, and I went along to a training session, and it was, as you would have expected it to be, very subdued. I mean, we'd been there in the build-up to the Germany game, and there was a lot of laughing and joking and carrying on and games, and, looked like great deal of fun was being had by all. That wasn't the case yesterday. It was a pretty miserable day, but I think the mood of everyone in the camp was pretty subdued and pretty low. I think they were still just a bit shell-shocked by what had happened on Friday night.
Yeah, shell-shocked is kind of the word, because we, again, to touch on the game briefly, I don't think we were overly optimistic necessarily about a result, but I think we were optimistic that Scotland would do a bit better than they did. We'll get into what Steve Clarke had to say about Austin MacPhee, and I know that was a question that you'd posed to him after the game at the Allianz Arena on Friday night. But what was Steve Clarke kind of saying to the press in regards to his reflections from the game? I know there was a lot of talk about his team selection, Billy Gilmore, who you'd imagine has to come back into the team for Wednesday's game. But what was Steve Clarke's main takeaways when he was asked about that Germany game today?
Well, first of all, I think hats off to Steve Clarke for doing the media today, for fronting up and putting himself forward to speak to the media. It wasn't his turn. There's a rota. He wasn't due to speak to reporters. He was due to speak to reporters at the pre-match press conference on Tuesday. But rightly, he felt that he should. There's been such a negative reaction to the Germany game. I just don't think he really felt right about putting one of his coaches out to answer all these questions. And fair play to him for doing that. The first thing he said was, I got things wrong. He said whenever there's a defeat or a bad performance, he always looks at himself first and foremost and what he could have done better, which I think he deserves credit for as well. And one of the things that he said was that he felt he gave them too much information, and he felt that looking at the team, they weren't entirely sure what to do in possession. They weren't entirely sure what to do out of possession, and he took the blame for that. So, I thought that was thought that was quite interesting, and I think that's the sort of thing that endears a coach to his players, especially after a result like that. If a coach comes out and starts saying he should have done this, he should have been there, etc., then that's the sort of thing that sows unrest in a squad. The first thing he said was, I could have done better. I gave them too much information, and he thought that it clouded their judgment on the park. So, fair play to him. He's not shying away from anything.
Yeah, and I guess to your point there, he didn't have to do the media duties today, and obviously the media duties are pretty relentless during a major tournament like this. But I guess, Matty, that's probably a bit of a reflection of the fact that he probably wouldn't want to spend, because if he didn't speak to the press before Tuesday, as you're saying here in Cologne, then the whole press conference would have probably been dominated by that. And he can't afford that, can he? Because
Yeah,
the reality is that Scotland were their group stage was never going to be defined by the result in the Germany game. But if it had been allowed to linger, and if it is allowed to linger, then it could be defined by, I guess, the reaction and the mood from the Germany game. So do you think that's probably a factor as well, that he realises we need to write this off because there is 2 games here that Scotland can compete in, but equally because of the nature of that first defeat, if they don't get a result against Switzerland, then suddenly you're 5 days into the huge build-up of this international tournament, and suddenly you don't really have a chance of going through if the result doesn't go your way against Switzerland.
Yeah, 100%. He couldn't afford to turn up in Cologne on Tuesday and start getting asked about why did Ryan Porteous make that tackle? Why didn't Callum McGregor do better? He had to just take it on the chin and get the Germany game out the way. Answer all the questions, answer all the respond to all the criticism that's been levelled at him and his team, and draw a line under it. And then from this point onwards, it's Switzerland all the way. And I think he was correct to do that. I think yes, it was a painful defeat. Yes, it was an awful performance. We didn't really get a very long to speak to him on Friday night. I mean, he was only in the press conference room for 3 or 4 minutes, and there's reporters there from all over the world. There's the sort of international media. It's not a great environment to get really detailed answers and in-depth answers on things. So it was kind of an unsatisfying press conference on Friday night because of that. So yeah, he had to come and speak to the media in a more relaxed setting today and address all the criticism that's been levelled at him and his team, and he did that. And they'll have a meeting with his team tonight where they'll look over the Germany game again, certain aspects of the Germany game, and then as of first thing Monday morning, it's Switzerland.
You brought up the press conference after the game, so I want to ask you about a question that you posed, Steve Clarke, which caused a bit of a ruffle on social media and beyond. You asked him about an altercation with, I think it was Austin MacPhee, and he wasn't, shall we say, and I think probably reflects what you're acknowledging there, Matty, that after the game, it's an emotional press conference today. He's had a little bit more distance. He was asked about that again today. Take us behind the thinking of that question and what Steve Clarke said today. If people don't get the context, effectively, there was a bit of a disagreement, something that he says that happens all the time in a football game, but the nature of the fact that the cameras caught it, it was a 5-1 defeat. It came, I think, when a set piece was taken quickly or was taken incorrectly. What did Steve Clarke say on Friday night, and how did that come up today again in the press conference?
I don't think he appreciated the question on Friday night. I think you can give him a pass on that. His team's just been beaten 5-1 in the Euro 2024 opener against Germany. It's emotions are clearly running high, but I thought it was a valid question. I mean, it was, there were several topics of debate among supporters and on social media and among pundits and commentators. I would say that was one of the biggest issues for people. This sort of flashpoint in the technical area where Steve Clarke was screaming at Austin MacPhee as set piece coach. So I thought it was a relevant question to ask. If you have your manager involved in an altercation with a key member of his backroom team, is there an issue there? Was there a problem there? So I think I was entitled to ask the question. Equally, I accept his answer. I mean, these things happen in the heat of the moment. I'm sure, your team's getting hammered in a stadium full of 70,000 5,000 supporters who are giving you a hard time. I'm sure it's a difficult situation and tempers get frayed. So, I mean, Joshua, we're journalists. I mean, tempers get frayed when we're on deadline, and can't get connected, and, in every walk of life, in every profession. So, eventually he answered my question and, said, football's an emotional game, and, I accept that. It's, but I think it was, a valid question, which, despite what he thought at the time, I think it was a valid question, which I was justified in asking. And he went into it in a little bit more detail today. He just said that he was unhappy that a free kick got taken short instead of crossed into the box, and he said, look, when we after that, when we crossed a free kick into the box, we scored a goal. And also, when they took the free kick short, it didn't work, and Germany counter-attacked. So, I think he was angry about that. And Austin MacPhee's a set-piece coach, so maybe he was in the wrong place at the wrong time there. But, a storm in a teacup, I think.
Yeah, he also always gets up for set pieces. I love it when a set piece coach gets up for every single set piece. I can get behind that. So that was maybe Austin MacPhee paying the price for getting up from the dugout for that particular short corner. Right, let's talk a little bit about Switzerland, Matty. We referenced it yesterday in the podcast. I tuned into Switzerland-Hungary, not having watched a ton of Switzerland, and was slightly discouraged to see that they actually looked quite good in their 3-1 win over Hungary. Obviously, I think a lot of the attention has been on Hungary because they're quite an interesting team. They've not been at major tournaments much. They play an interesting brand of football. Whereas Switzerland, we're used to seeing them on this stage, and the narrative going into the tournament was, are they a little bit over the hill per se, but they still have qualified, I was reading today, for the knockout stages in their last 5 major tournaments. So they know how to get out of a group. This is going to be really difficult for Scotland. What do you think needs to change? For me, Billy Gilmour definitely needs to come into that team, because it will be another game, again, based on what I saw from Switzerland and their win over Hungary, where they have quite a lot of the ball. They have Akanji and Xhaka, 2 excellent players at the base of their build-up. Maybe not quite Tony Kroos, but still world-class players in those positions. It's going to be hard for Scotland to dominate the ball. But the key thing for me is, when they do get the ball, they need to make better use of it. They've not got the ability to go into to counter-attack really quickly, or they've not got Lyndon Dykes to kind of get them up the pitch. I think they need to hold on to the ball a little bit more. And for me, that would mean putting Billy Gilmour in there, as happened in the last European Championships a few years ago.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I would have started Billy Gilmour on Friday night. The issue there is, if you put Billy Gilmour in, who do you take out? And personally, I know he got a really hard time for his performance on Friday night, and he wasn't his best display by any manner of means. But personally, I would play Billy Gilmour alongside Callum McGregor. I think the pair of them really spark off each other, have a fantastic partnership, bring the best out of each other. I think Callum McGregor is a better player when Billy Gilmour's sitting alongside him, and vice versa. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff, people saying that Callum McGregor should be dropped. It might happen. I mean, is he going to drop McTominay? Is he going to drop McGinn? I'm not sure I can see that happening. And he loves Christie, and obviously thinks Christie gives him something just off the striker, and a little bit of invention and pace and forward areas. I would be inclined to drop Christie and play Gilmour and McGregor in the deep line roles, with McTominay and McGinn a little bit further ahead of them, and Che Adams. I don't think that will happen, but that's what I'd be inclined to do. Now, what's your feelings on that, Joshua? What would you do?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Scotland, I was writing a piece about this for the Herald tomorrow, and kind of just reflecting on the fact that, look, Scotland are not a team who, when they counter-attack, they've not got a striker who can really carry them up the pitch with pace. What are Scotland good at, and why are they here? And I think the areas in which they're really good is if they play that midfield you've outlined. Gilmore and McGregor at the base of midfield can go up against most teams, I would argue, with McTominay and McGinn in there as well. And if Scotland have the capacity to keep the ball a little bit more, and we know they've got difficulties on the right-hand side, because if you've got a Hickey or a Patterson, then suddenly I think your threat and attacking centrally increases on the right-hand side. But for me, you've got to keep the ball long enough to get Tierney and Robertson up the pitch, because that's how you get in behind, that's how you break defensive lines, that's your real quality in terms of delivery into the box. So I agree with you, because I don't think I see the logic behind Christie playing. He's someone who can carry the ball a little bit more effectively. But for me, Scotland have to go toe-to-toe a little bit more with Switzerland and keep the ball in the middle of the park. And to throw it back to you, Matty, is there a question about who plays up top? Because Che Adams had a undesirable task up top on his own against Germany. I thought he was very deep at points, which again didn't help Scotland to get out. But I think it's much like the goalkeeper conversation. He's probably not going to, Steve Clarke, change his mind too much based on that performance, is he?
No, I don't think you can really point a finger of blame at Che Adams. I mean, he was up against it, how the players behind him were performing.
Yeah.
With regards to Gilmore and McGregor and the sort of makeup of the midfield, I wouldn't be averse to Clarke leaving McTominay out. I think. I mean, I just don't think he didn't look right to me. He didn't look fit. He didn't look sharp. He looked like a guy that hadn't played since the FA Cup final. And listen, you might get carted away to the loony bin if you drop the guy that scored 7 goals for you in qualifying. But listen, desperate times require desperate measures. I think is it written in stone that Scotland have to start McTominay and John McGinn? I think in extreme situations you have to look for extreme solutions. Again, I don't think Clarke will do that. I can see him maybe dropping McGregor, sadly, but I think Che Adams. I think Che Adams will start again. I think he's the. He didn't get much of the ball, did he? Really? I mean, they could have played. They could have played Robert Lewandowski up front, and he wouldn't have been able to do something because the side was so poor.
Would have been nice though, wouldn't it? Lastly, Scotland have I guess Grant Hanley's going to come into the defence. The only thing that worries me slightly about that is if they play that high line. And again, watching Switzerland yesterday, they do have quite a lot of pace up there. I agree with you that McTominay, he didn't look sharp. The difficulty for Scotland is where else do the goals come from? Because the best source of goals is when you get Robertson and Tierney high and you get McGinn and McTominay at the kind of arriving into the box. But again, you need to hold on to the ball and get up the pitch and allow sufficient time for both of those things to happen. These aren't players who play in the last line; they're often in the second line or the defensive line. Just finally, as we wrap up, Matty, we'll obviously be back in the next couple of days, looking ahead to this game. How do you see this one playing out? Do you think that? Do you think that Scotland will be able to shake off the Germany defeat? Because speaking to players in the mix zone after, that was very much the tone. Look, we've got leaders in the dressing room. We're going to be able to move on from this very quickly. What are you sensing, having been around the Scotland camp? Because again, to go back to the last European Championship, Scotland had that really demoralising home defeat against the Czech Republic. They then went and played a difficult game against England away and were far improved. What is your sense heading into this game in Cologne on Wednesday?
I'm not feeling very optimistic about it, and the reason is, I think, if you look back at qualifying, I think the planets aligned for Scotland in qualifying. I think they had most, if not all, of their best players available to them in form, fit, and playing well. You had Aaron Hickey, you had your defence was there. Tierney, Robertson, McTominay was playing regularly. You had Dykes, Armstrong. And I think at the moment Scotland don't. I just think everybody goes on about, we've got McGinn, we've got McTominay, we've got all these great players, and well, maybe we do, but McTominay hasn't played much football recently. We've also got, we've brought in Anthony Ralston at right back, who's hardly played for Celtic this season, hardly started at all. Defence, I can understand why Steve Clarke went with Ryan Porteous. I just don't think Grant Hanley was 100% fit. Did you not think he'll bring in? Did you not think there's a chance he'll bring in Scott McKenna?
Yes, maybe, yeah, but then I don't know if this is just confirmation bias. I'm one of these people who thinks that let me make this point correctly. Last night, Italy were playing two left-footed centre halves, right? So you had a left footer on the left and a left footer on the right. I always feel that feels wrong to me, but if you've got two right-footed centre halves, it's fine. So I don't know if it's just my stupid confirmation bias that thinks he won't play a left footer in the centre of defence, the very centre. But maybe he obviously kind of got that goal. Has he done it that regularly? Played Scott McKenna in the middle of a back three from memory? I can't really think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. I'm not sure he'll get hung up on that. We've also got Liam Cooper.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about him. He does have a few options. But to get back to your original point, I mean, Steve Clarke has been heavily criticised. His players have been heavily criticised. He's been criticised for his team selection. He's been criticised for his tactics, and I think a lot of it's justified. I just can't shake off this sense that he doesn't have the bodies. He doesn't have the, I think Scotland are a team when they've got their best players in the starting lineup, fit and in form, they can do well. We don't have our best players in the starting lineup, and we don't have, and not everyone's fit and in form. And I think that is what the issue is. I think Steve Clarke really has his work cut out, and we all saw how impressive Switzerland were. I mean, you just have to look at their squad and the level that they're playing at. I mean, they're not the greatest international team, but they're a decent team with really good players. So no, I'm afraid I'm not very optimistic at all. But there's always hope. There's always hope with Scotland. I'd accept an improved performance, a battling performance. And I think Scotland fans would accept that. I think it was just the sort of meekness of the sort of capitulation on Friday was what annoyed the Scotland players. So I think they need to see a bit of fight and a bit of heart, as well as a more an improved display. But I think at the moment that's the as much as I'm hoping for.
Yeah, you need two things. You need a result that keeps it alive going into the Hungary game, because how terrible would that be to effectively be out after two games? And I think at every major tournament you want moments, and that was kind of starved of Scotland fans in the last major tournament, because they had the equaliser against Croatia, and that was kind of a moment, but it was 12,000 people in the stadium. So I think that is on the list for the game on Wednesday. We're going to leave it there. We'll continue to build up across Herald Sport in the days leading up to Wednesday. I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, DX Home Improvements. All the relevant links to them are in the description if you want to check them out. They are bringing you all our coverage from Germany throughout the duration of the tournament. Until then, make sure to keep up with all of our content over on the website. Loads of stuff there to keep you busy in between all the matches. I'm sure you're watching, and thank you very much for joining us. Have you got a point to make there, Matty, before I sign off?
Stay off the course, okay?
Yes. All right. Okay.
That's dangerous. That stuff dangerous. So just keep a lid on it, okay? It's not Tennent's Lager you're drinking over there, Joshua. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it from you. Okay. On that note, I'm off for a cool lager and not whatever Matty told me to have. We'll speak to you soon.